You are known as one of the market leaders around the Bitcoin space and around the mining space.
Nico Smid is the founder of Digital Mining Solutions, a company that builds portable Bitcoin mining units to support local communities and improve energy use.
How should somebody think about the mining and energy infrastructure in 2025?
The competition is very high. Just plugging in a miner and letting it run doesn't fly anymore. Bitcoin mining has a unique character. It's a flexible load. You can power up and down your mining fleet as you wish, and it doesn't interrupt the Bitcoin network.
How do you see mining playing a role beyond just balancing the grid?
A lot of these data centers are moving to rural areas. People that live there are kind of scared of it. What's going on here? What is this technology doing in my backyard? But there's actually a big opportunity for these people to start working at these facilities.
You also have competition within AI compute space. What's happening in the AI compute space relative to data centers and mining infrastructure? How are the two interplaying right now?
Yeah, so
all right, Nico, it's great to be here with you. We're at a cool convention.
Yeah.
You're known as one of the market leaders in really interesting analysis around the Bitcoin space and around the mining space. But before we get to that, I actually want to talk, you've got a really unique background. So you've been in public policy, you've been in NGOs, you've been on the commercial side, you've been in the export side. So you kind of start off in traditional business and policy making and export. So how did you get into the very niche world of mining and energy, analysis and expertise from the traditional world?
Well, I got invested into Bitcoin in 2017.
Okay.
I always wanted to do something in the space. I never knew what or how because I'm not a developer or a programmer. So I was always intrigued by the Bitcoin mining space. And it wasn't until I discovered mining that I thought, oh, this is where I can apply my skills. So yeah. I worked a lot in international business development. I helped a lot of companies establish abroad and grow their business, professionalize. And Bitcoin mining is a young industry that's growing very fast. And there's a lot of room for professionalization and
Say it lightly. It was a little bit of a cowboy industry for many years, right?
Yeah, it's becoming much better, much more professional. You can tell also by the stands that we have here at the show. So, but yeah, that's where I saw the niche. And for my background, I ran programs with companies that wanted to do business abroad, and we would always start with doing a market research. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a market research on the Bitcoin mining industry, see where I can add value. And that's where I discovered that there's not a lot of information out there. So I started publishing a newsletter, weekly newsletter, covering the industry, looking at mining economics, the numbers behind mining, and translate that into business strategies also.
Yeah.
And then other weeks we look at trends and innovations in the space.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I see is this space has kind of crossed the chasm from a super niche, very Bitcoin specific industry to now, you have nation states are involved. You have clearly large policy making getting involved. You have corporations that are mining now, right? So, for our constituency, which is a lot of enterprise companies, a lot of capital allocators, what is the state of the state? If you were to give a very brief view on the market analyst side, how should somebody think about the mining and energy and infrastructure industry right now, in 2025?
Well, last year there was the halving, so the block subsidy, which is an important part of the revenue for miners, was cut in half. And the margins have been suppressed for a prolonged time. That has to do with that halving, but also with all the hash rate or the computing power that's being deployed online. So the competition is very high. And just plugging in a miner and letting it run, it doesn't fly anymore. So,
and my competition is really high. In the old days, you would plug in an old GPU miner and it would be in your basement and whatever. But there's a whole different, class of people who are now kind of professionalized it. So you have what's the context around that? How do, you advise a lot of clients. These are not hobbyist miners generally, right?
No. So we saw between 2020 and 2025 a growth of 700% of the network itself. So there's a lot of computing power that's being added, but also the efficiency of the machines have been improving tremendously. And now what you see is like these computers, they're reaching the limits of the efficiency.
Yep.
So if you want to be able to compete, you need to be very efficient on the operational side.
Yes.
And that's where also a lot of great business cases come in, like the reuse of heat that we've seen in Scandinavia, for example.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the energy, like areas where there's renewable energy and there's really interesting use cases of energy. But before we get there, you talked about the competition, and one of the things I think is interesting in this market is you also have competition within the sort of AI compute space. So what's happening in the AI compute space relative to data centers and mining infrastructure, and like how are the two interplaying right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that Bitcoin mining has a unique character and that it's a flexible load. And that means that you can power up and down your mining fleet, as we say, your operation, as you wish, and it doesn't interrupt the Bitcoin network. Whereas AI, HPC is what we call firm load, so it needs to be online 99 points until 5 nines behind the comma. So it needs another type of energy, and it needs a lot of redundancy in the build out. So it's the build outs are usually 10 to sometimes 20 times more expensive for AI HPC.
Right.
While the Bitcoin mining build outs are cheaper, but it's a flexible load that provides a lot of use cases. You've seen in Texas where there's a lot of demand response. There's a lot of wind being produced when there's peaks of production that are, an overproduction of energy that's underutilized. That's where miners can step in. Or if demand spikes, then they can power down and ensure that the grid doesn't black out.
Right. So I think one of the more interesting things to me about what's happening in this industry is like, for a long time there was almost this dual conversation around like, let's reduce our energy load, not necessarily seeing that like in terms of GDP creation and people's actually abundant living and standard of living increasing, the production of energy is actually highly correlated to that. Yeah, more energy means like more abundance and higher standard of living. But the energy creation now has different sort of characteristics. The AI guys are paying more money, having high professional like data centers around it, whereas here's a flexible load, and those two can go interact. How do you see different kinds of flexible load, like on-demand response? So we have solar, we have wind, we have hydro, like maybe paint the picture around like the different areas where you see you have on-demand and flexible load that's alternative to, fixed energy that the AI guys are taking.
Yeah, so especially wind and solar is what we call intermittent production, so it's not consistently producing, whereas hydro is more of a consistent production. And it causes peaks in generation, and that's where the miners step in, and it can offload, let's say, or provide that load to offtake that energy and stabilize the grids. But a trend that we're seeing is that many AI, HPC data centers are looking at miners because many miners acquired big contracts and have access to power. That's interesting to the AI HPC sector. But we've seen a shift also, like an interest from the HPC guys in Bitcoin mining to provide that flexible load to their business. What miners can, for example, do is use underutilized power. So a high-performance data center is being built out, but they are not directly filled with all the clients. You can plug in your miners and use the full power capacity. You can also integrate renewables into HPC data centers if you use a flexible load of mining. And also what I've been seeing is that HPC data centers can use Bitcoin mining to stress test, to load test their data centers, to go to the max and see if their infrastructure is sufficiently prepared.
Yeah, and so you're stress testing. The other thing is on the other side, like, you're seeing a lot of, I think, balancing of the grid in many places, especially, Texas and other folks were, I think, early on, but now you have this in the global south where there's all kinds of grid balancing issues, right? So I'd love for you to talk about, because I know you're involved in a bunch of more like, I think alternative views around where mining can be used in everything from heat and, excess waste and excess energy to like what it can be done with the community and circular kind of economies there. So like, how else do you see mining kind of playing a role beyond just balancing the grid, but actually beyond that, like what is that doing socially? Because that's probably different than maybe what the AI guys are talking about.
Yeah, I think I just spoke to some guys that train people in rural areas in the States, which I think is very interesting because a lot of these data centers are moving to rural areas.
Yep.
And people that live there, they are kind of scared of it. Like, what's going on here? What is this technology doing in my backyard, right? Yep. But there's actually a big opportunity for these people to start working at these facilities. And the profiles of people that you need for these facilities is very diverse. So you need people that know about HVAC, you need electrical engineers, you need computer technicians. So I think that's the beauty of Bitcoin mining. You need a variety of people that come together to be able to run such a facility. So I think there's opportunity, especially in the rural areas, to provide jobs to people.
Yeah, it has economic output. You live in Argentina. Argentina has, its own view of a very, let's call it, unique relationship with money. And many parts of the global south have a different view, right, I think, in need of Bitcoin than in other places like America. And so how do you view the interaction with mining in the global south? Because it's an area where I think clearly Bitcoin is growing a lot. A lot of mining is moving back actually to the US for job creation and pro policy.
Yeah.
But like, where does places like Africa and places like South America, like where do they play a role in kind of the mining infrastructure?
Yeah, so what you see, for example, in Argentina, there's a lot of stranded gas. So there's gas production, but then there's no pipelines to transport it. Right now, there's big negotiations going on between the big players to invest in these pipelines, but to build it out takes various years. So then, there's stranded assets that are underutilized, and there's an opportunity for miners. Also,
did you define stranded assets? Stranded energy is a really interesting concept in the Bitcoin space, but if you're not spending time either as an energy expert or a miner, like that's kind of a cool thing, right? Unique thing.
Yeah, so it's energy that doesn't reach the end market, right?
Yeah.
In the case of gas, you need these pipelines to transport it because making it liquid is too much of a costly process, and then it's not economically viable anymore.
Yeah.
So there's been investments in the generation, production of oil and gas, but then the distribution is lacking.
Yeah.
You see
sometimes it's waste, right? Like it's literally waste where you have flared gas that's sitting there.
Yeah,
so you have the waste from sugar cane. There's all kinds of really interesting areas where it's stranded energy, right?
If you extract oil, there's a byproduct that's coming out, which is gas.
Yeah.
And that gas is usually not of sufficient quantity or quality, or quantity and quality, to commercialize, so it's being flared.
Yeah.
And that's where miners can step in and put a generator and capture that gas, lower emissions in the process.
And it otherwise go into the environment, and then from there, like they would actually have to pay to clean it up, right? Which is really fascinating.
What you see in Argentina is that the amount of petrol oil they can extract from the ground is related to the amount of emissions. So if they reduce the emissions, they can increase the oil production. So right now, if they're flaring, they're limiting the how much oil I can extract. So
right. And then so you have these these massive natural resources. Where's your view on natural resources are interplayed with policy making, right? And I think that's one of the things that's clearly changed in the last year or two. Is this went from an industry that was kind of, said nicely, left behind from the policymakers to now, a lot of people are leaned in. So where do you see governments and policymakers and large institutions sort of playing a role, in a lot of the natural resources and monetizing the natural resources and having mining involved and potentially putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet?
Yeah, so I think you see a trend, right? And in Bhutan, they're mining an excess hydropower. Ethiopia has been very welcoming to miners. So governments realize that there's an opportunity to diversify their revenue stream. You know, like if you look at Bhutan, they're very, very much dependent on agriculture and tourism, not very a diversified portfolio of economic activities, let's say, and they can add another revenue stream. But it's not only selling the excess energy, it's also being able to tax importation, for example, getting the taxes on the energy itself, and then you have this whole industry around it. It's logistics, moving equipment, it's repair centers that pop up. So there's different economic activity around these data centers itself.
It's crazy how the industry's grown up, right? And now you have an entire ecosystem around it. You have institutional players around it. And then you have now governments. I think Bhutan, which is pretty wild, is like one of the top 10 nation state holders, and it's a very small country, so holder of Bitcoin, which is pretty incredible. No one's got a crystal ball, but like, what's your prediction on where the industry goes in the next, say, 2 years? Because massive change has happened in the last 2 years. Institutions are now involved, and you probably got more access to data than most in this industry, right? So
I think there's a couple of trends that we're seeing. I think the miner of the future is a miner that not necessarily is mining at its core, but it's part of another business, whether it's an energy generator or it's a greenhouse that needs heat. So it's going to merge with other types of industries.
Yeah.
That's a trend that I'm seeing. I think we'll also see more financial products around mining, around the hash rate. That's a computing power. So products that sell this computing power on the open market. That's another trend that I've been seeing. So that I think the commoditization of ASICs and hash rate itself is a big trend that's coming out.
yeah, which ultimately means to make it profitable, it's merging within other industries and commercializing as a whole, which is super cool. So this has been an awesome conversation. Like, you have a huge newsletter that like most people in the industry follow. I think you've got a big social following. Like, where do people find like all of your really incredible analysis, and where should they go?
Yeah, so we have this weekly newsletter that we put out. We have over 7,000 subscribers, which is quite good in this industry because it's still a niche industry. But a lot of that I digest on LinkedIn and try to provide it in such a way that it's understandable for a broader audience, and also build a bridge with a more traditional finance space, let's say.
All right, so where they go to see this incredible newsletter is at nico.com or?
Yeah, so my company is called Digital Mining Solutions, so it's digitalminingsolutions.tech. And my LinkedIn profile is Nico Smid, NICO SMID, on LinkedIn. So that's a good entry point.
It's a great entry point. You have incredible content, and it's always awesome to sit next to you and learn. So I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for the invite.
Thanks for your work.